Hey, what's good, guys? It is Tyler PSwitch Dow, the Silent P. I want to do something a little bit more interesting, something I've been wanting to do for a while. Last week on YouTube, I dropped My Theory Is episode, which was like kind of sad. I won't say sad. It was like thoughtful. It was me getting into like my feelings about basically my aunt's death almost immediately after I found out the news, and I just wanted to like get those true inner emotions out. But I don't want my theory is to be a sad thing. I want it to be something where we can actually talk. I want it to be one of the more looser things that we actually get to do. Today we're going to get into an article. We're getting into an article that is not a new article. It's not something like super trendy. If you're anything like me, I'm one of those people that keeps like 300 bookmarks because when I'm scrolling through my emails and everything, I get distracted and I open up tabs and open up tabs and open up tabs. I keep all of these tabs open, and then later on, I make it part of my schedule. I make it part of my lifestyle to actually have to go in and look at those articles. And I wanted to dive a bit deeper into it because I think it's very much all about what the theory is and what it feels like. It is an article from November 27th, 2018, Vulture New York Magazine, and it's How to Be an Artist 33 Rules to Take You from Clueless Amateur to Generational Talent, in parentheses, or at least help you live life a little bit more creatively creatively. Because I remember being like a pretentious little kid and like having a very specific idea of what an artist is. We live in this world where uh, I 100% identify as an artist, and I identify everybody as a bit of an artist. It's just like how the art that you create, what you contribute to it, what you take out of it, what you make the most out of it. So Bo Burnham's Inside yesterday, and it was great. And I think it was like a perfect idea defining what an artist looks like in this day and age. It was funny, it was a little bit sad, and it was kind of like tried to push boundaries. And I think that's not what all art does, but that is what art can be. And it was a great example of it. The article starts off, art is for anyone. Hey, that's what I was just saying. It's just not for everyone, which I completely agree with too. I know this viscerally as a would-be artist who burned out. I guess this is Jerry Saltz talking about himself. The paradigm, what? The paradigmatic? Wow, do I not know this word? Today, we are all Andy's children, especially in the age of Instagram, which has trained everyone to think visually and to look at our regular lives as a fodder for aesthetic output. So my theory is everything is cool, everything is art, everything that's natural, that's you, can be yours because it's your perspective. And what art is just creating something like out of your perspective, right? So there are 33 rules, and they really are all you need to know to make a life for yourself in art. Lesson one is don't be embarrassed. That is the difference between a person who considers himself an artist and somebody who doesn't. When I was a pretentious young little nigga, I'm sure I was embarrassed to call myself an artist, but because that was because I was bad at fine art, is because I wasn't good with my hands, even though I was making music, writing things on my computer, rewriting script, but in my head that wasn't what art was. You get moments where you like perform in front of people and you feel that power and you feel that level, and it changes your mind, and it shifts. You're like, how can I be embarrassed when I'm creating this and I'm creating this moment? Lesson two, tell your own story and you will be interesting. I completely agree with that. Boring people are not people who haven't like experienced too much in life, because everybody has a different experience than what I've gone through. So most people's experiences are interesting. What isn't interesting is when people try to frame their experience in the way that somebody else has framed their experience. If I wanted to talk about my rap and my music career, and I was framing it in the experience of Jay-Z, like, yeah, I'm boring. But when I tell my full story, my full picture, that's complete. That's interesting. And in many ways, It's more interesting when it's different from something that you've seen before. Lesson three, feel free to imitate. That was a big lesson I had to learn. All ideas, all concepts come from somewhere else. Your earliest ideas were sprouted from somewhere else. We get to a point where we get so controlling over our IP, but so much of who we are and what our IP is made of comes from us taking and stealing from other people. Lesson four, art is not about understanding or mastery. I think in the music, especially in rap, like pop, R&B, you like, I guess it's music in general, you really see that more than ever. Like, oh, well, this person can't sing. They're not great, but you're like, but do they make you feel something? That's what it's about. Sometimes you can see like a child's piece of artwork and you're thinking, wow, how are they able to capture this? How are they able to understand this feeling? It's not because they have more years of experience than you have. It's just that they captured a moment that relates to you. Lesson five. Work, 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 work. Let me work, 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 work. Let me work, 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 work. Because that's what it is, it's experience. When you think about work as a human being, as something else, it's about like going to 9 to 5. But when you're an artist, your work is your life. Those were the first 5 steps as an amateur. Start with a pencil. Think about starting with the tool. So whether that was me starting with the pencil, writing raps for the first time, or being on my old computer and writing my versions of X-Men and Spider-Man. You got to start somewhere. Just pick it up and put it to paper. Develop forms of practice. If you're a rapper, start writing. If you are a painter, decide what you're going to paint with. Practice on it. Practice different ways. Lesson 8. Now redefine skill. You put pen to paper, you start practicing, you start getting into it, but then you have to decide what is good and what isn't good. Stop comparing yourself to like the big archetypes of whatever your genre or whatever your medium is and define what is good for you. Lesson number 9, embed thought and material. What does this mean? An object should express ideas. Art should contain emotions, and these ideas and feelings should be easy to understand, complex or not. So when I first started writing raps for the first time, like it was all right, I'm getting a rhyme done, like I'm finishing a verse. Now, do I like this verse? Like, what's the difference between a good verse that I've written and what has not been a good verse that I've written? And I feel like when you start writing your first raps, you're just writing whatever you think is hot. I'm a big baller. I'm a shot caller. Like you're saying the things that you've heard other people say. But then you get to a point where you start speaking what you mean. You start getting your own idea out. You're like, I want to write this verse about this, or I started this verse and it led me there. Embed thought in material. So you are actually putting your thought into the material that you are creating. Exercises build a life total. This one's not built, but just the idea of a mala, just the idea of understanding that at any moment you can take control over your mind. Lesson 10 goes directly from there. Find your voice, and then the subtext under that is then exaggerated. So now you're writing your verse. What makes your voice interesting? Are you humorous? Are you really dramatic? Are you really emotional? Whatever it is, whatever feels like you. Number 11, listen to the crazy voices in your head. All right, this is my voice. You're gonna start getting a bunch of other different voices. Oh, what if maybe this is your voice? Because just as you have found your voice, all of these other voices that are now starting to join into this chorus are also a part of you. And lesson 12, know what you hate. That's so perfect to go with the voices because you're going to get an idea and you're going to go, that's not a good idea. Just because that idea was formed in your head and just because that idea was created does not mean you have to follow it. Draw a line in the sand, create your own boundaries. Lesson 13, scavenge. So life is your syllabus, gather from everywhere. Step 3, which Jerry Saltz from Vulture says is about learning how to think as an artist. Lesson 14 says compare cats and dogs. That's where appreciation as an artist comes from. Well, that's what helped me kill the pretentious thing. Understanding that there's not a right way or a wrong way. There's a way that I'm comfortable, there's a way and I enjoy, but understanding and finding appreciation in other people's ways. Lesson 15. Understand that art is not just for looking at. It's to be felt, it's to be understood, it's to be interpreted, it's to be thought about. Lesson number 16. Learn the difference between subject matter and content. So what the subject me is and then what the actual content is conveying from the subject. Okay. A lot of? Wow, that's lesson 17. See as much as you can. Why? Because it has an impact on your perspective. It changes your perspective. I think that one's a given. Lesson 18. All art is identity art. This is because it is made by somebody. It's like when we talk about politics, like, oh, keep politics out of art, keep this out of art. Like, how can you keep these things out when they're all a part of it? You may have the privilege to separate worlds, so understanding that art and identity are always combined. All art was once contemporary art. Wow, that speaks to cancel culture in the best way ever. Let's see what it says. Never forget this, that all art was made by artists for and in reaction to their time. It's like when people take the nuance out of things. How can we have this conversation if you have taken the nuance? You've actually taken the real meaning out of this. And now we're talking about just concepts and theories, and we're not talking about reality. Lesson number 20, accept that you will likely be poor. I mean, I think that's a good point. Most people who are artists do not make money off of their art. And though we see tons of people creating underneath that tip of the iceberg, there are exponential amounts that you're not seeing. Lesson 21, define success. That's a big thing because that's what helps you wake up in the morning. You know, if you're not finding the purpose, if you're not understanding, enjoying what you're getting from it, then you're not going to be driven and you're not going to be motivated to keep doing it. So you have to understand what you're doing it for and strive for that. Lesson 22. It only takes a few people to make a career. In the music industry in the world, they talk about like you don't need to be rich and famous, right? You just need 1,000 super fans that are willing to buy your stuff, that listen to your stuff, and you can create great partnerships. Lesson 23. Learn to write. I guess in the music world, this is probably one of those that speaks to fine art a bit more. But you know, even in terms of press releases, even in terms of contacting people, even in terms of messaging people, even in terms of approaching people, you got to know how to do it. And lesson 23 is good for that. 10 more. Artists must be vampires. Lesson number 24. Stay up late every night with other artists around your age. Show up, go to openings, events, parties, wherever there are more than two of your kind. That is so true. That is where inspiration comes from. That's where you meet people who understand you and agree with you. You also meet people you don't like. So you're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. It's hard to show up sometimes. You don't want to. Artists must commune with their own kind all the time. There are no exceptions to this rule, even if you live out in the woods. It doesn't matter where you live, big city, small city, little town, you will fight and love together. You will develop new languages together and give each other comfort, conversation, and strength to carry on. This is how you will change the world in your art. Even my theory, like, the breaking point for me was understanding that like I was developing my own theory and I was developing my own concept, but what it spoke to is that everybody has their own theory and their own concept. When I took myself out of it and realized that it was an all of us thing, it was like a really brought relief and it brought value and it brought like satisfaction to me. Learn to deal with rejection. I mean, that's important. Not everybody's gonna like your shit. Make an enemy of envy. That's great. And that goes back to understanding that your story is your story. I don't have time for fuck shit like that, so we're not even gonna spend too much time on that. Having a family is fine. Build it around your art. Doing certain things before you have kids is going to prevent you from having the family that you want, then maybe those aren't the right things. Step 6 is attain galactic brain. These are big ideas, obviously, right? These are universal ideas. Lesson 28. What you don't like is as important as what you do like. So recognizing the parts of your story and appreciating them, but also recognizing the things that make you tick and the things that set you off hold equal as much weight. That's where the balance comes from. Don't say, I hate figurative painting. You never know when you will see a so called figurative painting that catches your attention. So don't be an art world undertaker pronouncing mediums dead. Painting is dead. The novel is dead. The author is dead. Photography is dead. History is dead. Nothing is dead. Because if you like it, you can bring life back into it. Art is a form of knowing yourself. Art is not optional, not decorative landscaping in front of the castle of civilization. It is no more or less important than philosophy, religion, economics, or psychology. Artists do not own the meaning of their work. Other people are going to take from your work what they take from it. Remember, anyone may use your art, any art, in any way that works for them. Lesson 31. All art is subjective. This is the case with almost all good art. It is always changing, and every time we see it anew, you think, how could I have missed that before? Art is a static, non changing thing that is never the same. Lesson 32. You must prize vulnerability. You must be willing to fail flamboyantly, do things that seem silly and that might get you judged as a bad person. And finally, this one took my energy a little bit. And there's no coffee left in this cup. After beating yourself up for half an hour or so, stop and say out loud, yeah, but I'm a fucking genius. Fucking genius. Fucking genius. You are. You are. Art is for anyone. It just isn't for everyone. Be delusional, right? Why else would I go through 33 lessons made by Jerry Saltz? As I'm delusional that my intaking of it and the impact that this has on me will have an impact on somebody else and we can share in this moment together. And that's cool. My theory is everybody's an artist. My theory is that your perspective is important. And if everybody understood that their perspective was important and that everybody else's perspective is important, things might be a little bit more loving. That would be nice. My name is Tyler PSwitch Dow, the Silent P. Subscribe on YouTube, listen to my music on Spotify, streaming platforms, wherever you listen to music. Thank you for this time that we have spent together. Stay cool. Have a productive week.